Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are so glad you're here because today we are tackling a problem that I think every single person listening has felt at some point. It's that sensation of being stuck.
Oh, absolutely.
You know the feeling, right? You've got all the hardware, you've got this incredible supercomputer between your ears, but it feels like nobody ever gave you the software manual.
It's the universal human dilemma, isn't it? We're born with the most complex piece of biological machinery in the known universe, and yet we spend most of our lives just guessing how to operate it.
Usually operating it by accident.
Exactly. We let our environment, our history, our old habits dictate our internal state instead of actually taking the controls ourselves.
Right. You're pressing buttons, you're trying to get a specific result, like happiness or motivation, but instead you just keep getting these error messages. Anxiety, procrastination, or that nagging critical voice that just will not shut up. And that is precisely why I am so excited about the source material we are unpacking today. We are doing a comprehensive deep dive into how to take charge of your life, the user's guide to NLP.
It's by Dr. Richard Bandler, Alessio Roberti, and Owen Fitzpatrick.
And this is a really significant text.
It is. Richard Bandler is, well, he's a legend in the field of personal development. He's the co-creator of neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP.
And what's so fascinating about this book, and I think why it works so well, is that it's not a dry academic textbook.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's written as a narrative. The subtitle says it all, really. It is literally a workshop between the covers.
That narrative structure is so crucial, isn't it? It makes everything feel so much more accessible.
Absolutely. It lets you learn vicariously. I mean, instead of just being told a theory, we get to watch protagonist apply that theory in real time with all his doubts and his failures and his breakthroughs.
We're following a character named Joe, a man who is, frankly, he's a bit of a mess.
He is a relatable mess, though.
We watch him as he attends a 3-day seminar with Bandler himself. And through Joe's eyes, we see this transformation from, deep skepticism to eventual mastery.
And Joe is, well, as you said, he is painfully relatable.
Oh, completely. Let's really set the stage here because understanding where Joe starts is just so key to understanding the whole journey.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 introduces us to him, and honestly, his life is looking pretty bleak.
It's not great. On paper, it sounds fine. He's a regional manager at a large firm.
But he hates it. He absolutely hates his boss, who sounds like a total nightmare.
The classic toxic workplace dynamic. The book gives this perfect example. The boss just dumps a huge pile of work on Joe's desk at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon.
Right before a holiday weekend, probably.
Of course. Just so he can go play golf, leaving Joe to just stew in his resentment all weekend. It's such a specific and infuriating scenario.
It really is. But it's not just the external stuff, it's Joe's internal response to it. He's terrified of an upcoming presentation he has to give.
To the board of directors, no less.
Yeah. Public speaking is his kryptonite. He's completely paralyzed by it. And then there's his personal life, which is, well, it's in shambles.
Total shambles. His girlfriend, Lisa, left him about a month ago.
And she didn't just leave him. The book makes a point of saying she left him for a burly personal trainer.
Ouch. That detail is just so specific and so painful. It really just highlights the hit to his ego, his sense of self-worth.
It's pure salt in the wound.
Yeah.
So as a result, Joe is overweight. He's started smoking again. He's got insomnia.
The book opens with him just lying in bed, staring at a gray ceiling, just spiraling.
Totally. And his internal monologue is just beating him up. He's thinking things like, life is suffering and there are winners and losers, and I am definitely a loser.
And this is what Bandler would call a habit of feeling bad. It's such a crucial frame shift. Yes. We often think of depression or anxiety as these things that happen to us, like a virus we catch from the air. But Bandler's perspective, and really the core premise of NLP, is fundamentally different. He argues that traditional psychology often obsesses over the why.
The backstory.
The backstory, exactly. It's an archaeology of the past, digging up your childhood, trying to find the root cause of why you're miserable. Bandler just isn't interested in why. He's interested in how.
The mechanics of the misery.
Precisely. How do you construct the feeling of misery right now? What is the actual structure of the thought? What pictures are you making? What are you saying to yourself?
He has this provocative quote in the book. Most people are prisoners of their own brains.
And that's Joe. Joe isn't trapped by his boss or his ex-girlfriend. He is trapped by the specific way he is processing those events in his own mind. He is, in effect, practicing being miserable, and he's gotten very, very good at it.
That is a tough pill to swallow. that we are practicing our own misery. It puts the responsibility right back on us.
It does. But it's also incredibly empowering, isn't it? Because if it's a practice, if it's a skill.
You can change the routine. You can learn a new skill.
Exactly.
So Joe's sister, Maria, who sounds like the only bright spot in his life, she convinces him to go to this seminar. He's deeply skeptical. He thinks it's all going to be a bunch of rah-rah nonsense, but he's desperate, so he goes. And that brings us to segment 1, day 1 of the seminar, and the mechanics of thought.
And this is where we get right into the nuts and bolts of NLP. Bandler gets on stage and he opens with this core metaphor. You are the driver of your own bus.
It sounds so simple, almost childish even.
It does, but think about Joe. Joe feels like a passenger on his bus. Not even a passenger. He feels like he's tied to the bumper, being dragged along.
Right, the bus is driving him straight off a cliff and he's just watching it happen.
And Bandler's essentially standing there, dangling the keys, saying, you can drive this thing wherever you want.
So the first thing Bandler teaches is something called submodalities. Now, for our listeners, that term might sound a bit jargon-heavy. Let's unpack it. What exactly are submodalities?
Think of it this way. We don't experience the world directly, right? We experience a representation of the world that we build inside our heads.
Okay.
We take in information through our senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. Those are the modalities. Inside our minds, we recreate that information. We have mental pictures. We have an inner dialogue. We have feelings.
So submodalities are the next level down.
Exactly. They're the fine-tuning qualities of those representations. They are the details.
Like the settings menu on a TV or a computer screen.
That's a perfect analogy. If you have a picture in your mind, is it in black and white or is it in vivid color? Is it big or is it small? Is it right up in your face or is it far away? Is it a still image or is it a movie?
All those little details.
Those specific qualities, those details are the code. They are the instructions the brain uses to tell you how to feel about that memory or that thought.
Okay, so let's look at the first technique Joe learns, because this is wild how fast it works.
Yeah.
Bandler asks the audience to think of someone who annoys them.
And naturally, Joe immediately thinks of his horrible boss. He sees his boss's face, probably shouting at him or laughing at him.
And Bandler says, okay, just notice the qualities of the image.
And this is the breakthrough moment for Joe. He realizes it's not about what the boss is saying. It's about how he is seeing him in his mind's eye.
And how is he seeing him?
Well, for a threat response, the image is almost always large. It's close up. Maybe it's in bright, aggressive color. That size and that proximity are signals to the primitive part of your brain that say, threat. This is important. Pay attention to this.
So Bandler guides them through this little mental exercise. He says, take that image. Now drain all the color out of it. Make it black and white.
Then he says, shrink it down. Make it the size of a puzzle piece. And now, push it far away into the distance until it's just a tiny speck.
And Joe does this. He visualizes his screaming boss becoming this tiny, gray, distant dot. And what happens to the feeling?
It vanishes. The intensity just evaporates. You can't feel threatened by a tiny black and white speck 50 feet away. It's impossible. The brain's coding for threat has been scrambled. The instructions have been changed.
It's almost too simple, isn't it? Joe's sitting there, and he realizes he's not angry anymore. He's indifferent, maybe even a little amused by it.
And that's the whole point, the content, the fact that his boss is a jerk. That didn't change. The structure of the representation changed.
Then Bandler immediately flips it. He says, okay, now think of a really good memory.
Right. Joe thinks of his football team winning a big game, that feeling of pure joy and excitement.
And Bandler gives the opposite instructions. Make that image bigger, make it brighter, turn up the color, bring it closer, make it panoramic, wrap it all around you.
And as Joe does this, the feeling of joy just intensifies. It floods his system. So in the span of 5 minutes, he learns that he can manually adjust the volume knobs of his own emotions.
That is such a cool, empowering concept. But then Bandler takes it to a much heavier level. He tells a story about a woman on a bus, and not a metaphorical bus this time, a real one.
Yeah, this is a serious one. She was a survivor of the London bombings. This is deep, real-world trauma.
And she was completely trapped in that memory.
This is a crucial case study because it addresses the skepticism people often have about NLP. You know, sure, it works for annoying bosses, but can you really fix real trauma with these little mind tricks?
And this woman was in a bad way. She was reliving the bombing constantly. She was scanning every backpack she saw on the street, convinced it was a bomb. She was living in a constant state of terror.
And traditional therapy might ask her to talk about it, to process the pain, which in many cases just means making her relive it again and again and again.
Which Bandler argues just reinforces the neural pathway of the trauma.
Yeah.
You're just practicing the terror over and over.
You get better at it. So he does something completely counterintuitive. He uses what's now famously known as the reverse movie technique, or the phobia cure.
Okay, walk us through this.
Right. He asks her to imagine the entire traumatic event, but playing on a movie screen in front of her. Not happening to her, but watching it. That's the first step, dissociation.
Creating some distance.
Exactly. But here's the twist. He tells her to start the movie at the end, at a point of safety, after the event was over and she knew she was okay.
And then run it backwards, like a VHS tape on rewind.
Precisely. She sees people walking backwards, unfalling. She sees the glass from the windows flying up from the ground and reassembling itself. He sees the smoke sucking back into the explosive. She watches the entire narrative of the event reverse itself until she's back to the moment right before it happened.
And to add another layer of sort of absurdity to it, Bandler starts humming circus music while she's doing it.
The circus music is genius. It's what's called an auditory anchor, or a pattern interrupt. You physically cannot feel abject terror and listen to goofy circus music at the same time. The two states are incompatible. It creates a mismatch in the brain.
But the reversing is the key.
The reversing is the absolute key. Trauma and phobias rely on a sequence. A leads to B, leads to C, leads to the terrible feeling. When you run it backwards, C to B to A, you completely destroy the narrative logic. You scramble the code. The brain literally can no longer run the terror program because the sequence is broken.
So what was the result for the woman?
She looks at a backpack afterwards and feels nothing, just an object. The grip of the phobia, that automatic terror response, is broken in minutes.
That's incredible. And Joe, hearing this story, decides to try it on his own trauma, the breakup with Lisa.
Right. It's not a bombing, but to his nervous system, it's a significant trauma. He takes the memories of their worst arguments the moment she walked out the door.
And he runs them backwards in his head. He even puts on the circus music soundtrack in his mind.
And suddenly, the sharp, stabbing pain of the heartbreak starts to dull. It stops being this epic tragedy and starts looking like a strange, silent comedy. It creates that distance.
It takes the emotional charge out of it so he can actually function.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered these powerful visual tricks.
Yeah.
But Joe also meets a guy named Ross at the seminar, a practitioner who introduces him to a technique called Brilliance Squared.
I love the name.
It sounds like a sci-fi weapon, doesn't it?
It is a weapon, in a sense. A weapon against lethargy or low confidence. It's an anchoring technique that combines the visual with the kinesthetic, the feeling.
So how does it work?
The idea is to hallucinate a square on the floor in front of you. You give it a color, let's say a vibrant electric blue, a color that for you represents confidence or power.
Okay.
You then fill that square with the feeling of your absolute best self. Remember a time you felt totally confident, powerful, charismatic. You pour that feeling, that memory, that energy into the square until it's practically vibrating with it.
And
Then you physically step into it. You step into the square and you imagine that color and that feeling rushing up through your feet, filling your entire body like you're putting on a suit of armor made of pure confidence.
And Joe tries this. He steps into his imaginary square, and the book says his posture immediately changes. He stands up taller. He feels a physical rush.
It's hacking your physiology. Instead of waiting around hoping to feel confident, you decide to construct the feeling, you anchor it to a specific spot, and then you physically inhabit it.
Because emotions aren't just in your head.
They're not just mental, they're physical. Your posture, your breathing, your muscle tension, it all changes. By combining the visualization with the physical act of stepping forward, you are training your nervous system to access that powerful state on command.
Okay, we have to talk about the final big technique from day one, because I think this is the one I use the most in my own life, the Mickey Mouse voice.
Yes, the internal critic.
Joe has this critical inner voice, right? We all do. It's constantly telling him, you're a loser, this won't work, you're too fat, you'll never succeed.
And what do we usually do when we hear that voice?
We argue with it, we try to use logic, we say, no, I'm not a loser, look at all the things I've accomplished. But the voice just argues back even louder.
It's a pointless debate that you can't win. So Bandler says, stop arguing with the content. Forget what it's saying. Change the submodalities.
Change the tone of voice.
Exactly. Bandler tells Joe to take that exact negative sentence, you are a loser, and hear it inside his head, but in the voice of Mickey Mouse. Or a clown with a squeaky nose. Or Daffy Duck.
And when Joe does this, he starts giggling. He literally can't help it.
Because you cannot take a threat seriously if it sounds like a cartoon mouse. It completely strips the voice of its authority. The content, the words are the same, but the power is gone. It neutralizes the emotional impact immediately.
It's so brilliant. You aren't fighting the thought. You're just making it utterly ridiculous.
You're changing its auditory structure, and by doing that, you change its meaning to your nervous system.
So that pretty much wraps up day one. Joe leaves the auditorium. His head is spinning with all this new information, but for the first time in years, he feels a little bit lighter.
And he even musters the courage to act on it. He talks to a woman, Sarah, the brown-haired woman he's been admiring from afar.
He uses the techniques. He shrinks his fear of rejection into a tiny dot, makes the critical voice sound silly, and just says hello.
It's a small step, but for Joe, it's a massive shift in behavior. He took action instead of just sitting in his fear.
Exactly. So let's move on to segment 2. Day 2. The theme for this day is the architecture of belief.
Right. So if day 1 was about thoughts, the momentary flashes of images and sounds in your head, day 2 goes deeper. It's about beliefs, the underlying software that runs the entire operating system.
And Bandler's core assertion here is that beliefs aren't true or false in some objective universal sense.
No, he sees them in a much more pragmatic way. They are either useful or they are limiting. Does this belief help you get what you want out of life, or does it stop you? That's the only question that matters.
And he brings up the placebo effect as sort of the ultimate proof of how powerful beliefs are.
Yes. He talks about things like spontaneous remission. These are documented medical cases where people with terminal illnesses suddenly get better for no discernible medical reason.
They just believe they're being healed.
They believe it. Maybe they take a sugar pill, maybe they go through a spiritual ritual, but their mind becomes convinced that healing is happening. And the body just follows the mind's instructions.
So Bandler's question is, if the mind can trick the body into healing itself from cancer, why on earth aren't we using that power on purpose every single day?
Why aren't we actively building useful delusions, if you want to call them that, to make our lives better?
And this leads to what is, for me, the absolute centerpiece story of the entire book, the story of Charlie and the Devil.
Ah, yes.
Listeners, you need to buckle up for this one. The story is wild.
It's a classic Bandler case study, and it perfectly illustrates his approach to belief change. Charlie is a patient in a mental hospital. He has a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia.
And his core delusion is that he believes with absolute 100% certainty that the devil talks to him.
And the doctors have tried everything right. They've drugged him. They've done years of talk therapy. They've tried to reason with him. They keep saying, Charlie, the devil isn't real. It's just a hallucination in your head.
Which, of course, never works.
Never works. Because to Charlie, the devil is real. Denying his reality just makes him dig his heels in further. It breaks all rapport.
So Bandler takes a completely different approach. He doesn't challenge the delusion.
He enters it. He fully accepts Charlie's reality. His first question isn't, why do you think that? It's, how do you know it's the devil?
He's asking for the submodalities of the delusion.
Precisely. And Charlie says, well, he has horns. So Bandler tests the logic. He asks, if I had horns, would I be the devil? And Charlie says, no, the devil is 60 feet tall and he's red.
So Bandler gets the specs. He gets the exact visual and auditory details of Charlie's hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I still can't believe he actually did this,
Yeah.
he decides to out-crazy the patient.
He stages an intervention, but not a medical intervention, a full-blown theatrical production. He hires a special effects crew from a local university. He gets a smoke machine, lasers, and a giant holographic projector.
This is unbelievable.
He waits until nightfall, and he projects a 60-foot-tall, red, holographic devil on the wall outside Charlie's hospital window.
Can you even imagine? Charlie is just lying in his bed, probably hearing voices, and suddenly the actual real-life devil appears right outside his window.
And it gets better. Bandler gets on a microphone, hooked up to a powerful speaker, and he adds heavy reverb to his voice, you know, the classic voice of God effect.
Of course he does.
And he booms, Charlie, you have been talking about me.
And Charlie is just shaking in his bed, but he's also discerning. He says, you look different tonight.
Exactly. He's still testing reality against his internal model. And the devil, who's Bandler, says, I have come for the last time. Never mention my name again or you will suffer. Do you understand?
And Charlie frantically agrees.
But Bandler doesn't just leave it there. He gives him a new command, a new direction. He tells Charlie to turn to his bedside table. Bandler had arranged for a book to be planted there earlier.
And it's not the Bible.
It is not the Bible. It's an insurance sales manual.
An insurance sales manual. You can't make this stuff up.
The devil tells Charlie, read this book, become the best salesman in the state, and never speak of me again." And with that, the hologram vanishes. The lights go out. End scene.
And what was the outcome? What happened to Charlie?
Charlie is, for all intents and purposes, cured. The voices stop completely. He leaves the hospital. And, true to the devil's command, he reads the book and becomes a fantastically successful insurance salesman.
Because if the devil himself tells you to go sell insurance, you go sell insurance.
But look at the genius of the mechanism there. Bandler didn't fight the belief. He utilized it. He created a new, undeniable sensory experience that validated Charlie's belief.
He met him in his world.
He met him in his world and then provided a loophole. He gave the drama a conclusion. He closed the loop in a way that gave Charlie a productive new path forward.
It's an extreme example, but it just drives the point home.
Right.
Beliefs are malleable if you can provide overwhelming evidence.
Even if you have to manufacture that evidence yourself.
Okay, so back to Joe in the seminar. Joe isn't schizophrenic, but he has a deeply held limiting belief that is paralyzing him. His public speaking phobia.
Right. And Bandler calls him up on stage. Joe is terrified. He's shaking. He's sweating. He's a mess.
And this is where we learn the spinning feelings technique. It's a kinesthetic approach.
Bandler asks Joe to stop focusing on the fear as a concept and start paying attention to the physical sensation of it. He asks, "Where does it start in your body?" Joe says it starts in his stomach. And where does it go from there? It moves up into his chest, then his throat, choking him.
So it has a path. It has a momentum, a direction.
Exactly. It's what NLP calls a kinesthetic loop. Feelings aren't static. They move. They have a spin. So Bandler gives a simple, bizarre instruction. He says, imagine you can reach in, grab that feeling, pull it out of your body, turn it upside down, and spin it in the opposite direction.
So instead of rising up from his stomach to his throat, it spins downwards.
Joe tries this. He stands there on stage, closes his eyes, and he visualizes that spin reversing. And as he spins it faster and faster in the new wrong direction, the physical sensation of fear just drains away.
And Bandler hands him the microphone.
And Joe, who was about to pass out 30 seconds earlier, suddenly feels clear. And he just blurts out loudly, "I am Joe, and I am terrified of public speaking."
And the audience just erupts in laughter and applause.
The tension is broken. Because the physical loop that supported the emotion of fear was disrupted, the fear itself couldn't sustain itself. In that moment, Joe realizes that his belief, "I am a bad public speaker," was just a result of that physical program he was running. Once the program changed, the belief crumbled.
That's powerful. This segment of the book wraps up with a discussion on self-fulfilling prophecies. Bandler mentions the Rosenthal effect.
Right, it's a famous psychological study. Teachers in a school were told that certain students, chosen completely at random, were gifted and about to have an intellectual growth spurt.
Even though there was no evidence for it.
None at all. But at the end of the school year, those randomly chosen students actually did perform significantly better on IQ tests. The teacher's belief in them changed their behavior. They gave them more attention, more encouragement, which in turn changed the students' belief in themselves.
It's the cycle. Beliefs lead to actions, actions lead to results, and results reinforce the original belief.
And Joe realizes he's been stuck in a vicious negative cycle. He believes he's a loser, so he acts withdrawn and nervous, so he gets rejected, which just proves to him that he's a loser.
He decides he has to break the cycle. He uses his newfound confidence from the spinning technique to go talk to Sarah again during the break.
He uses the Mickey Mouse voice to kill his internal fear of rejection before he even walks over.
And it works. They have a real conversation. He's starting to see in real time that he can actually influence his own reality.
He's moving from being a passenger on the bus to actually being the driver.
Which brings us perfectly to segment 3. Day 3. The focus of this day is designing the future. It's all about timelines and goals.
And right away, Bandler makes a critical distinction that I think is so important. It's the difference between a goal and a direction.
A goal is a destination. A direction is a trajectory.
Exactly. And he uses this hilarious and gruesome chainsaw metaphor to explain it.
Oh, this is great. Joe tells Sarah his goal is to lose weight. And Bandler, in the book, tells a story about a client who came to him and said, "My goal is to lose 25 pounds.
And Bandler's response is, "No problem. I can help you lose 25 pounds instantly. Let me just go get my chainsaw and I'll cut off your leg."
It's shocking, but it makes the point perfectly.
It does. The brain takes instructions literally. If you tell your brain your goal is to lose weight, it focuses on weight and on loss. Loss is inherently negative. The brain resists loss. And weight is the problem you're focused on.
So what's the alternative?
Focus on towards motivation. Don't focus on losing weight. Focus on being a healthy, fit, athletic person. Focus on what you want to gain, not what you want to eliminate. Set a direction, not just a destination you're trying to escape from.
So Joe and Sarah pair up to practice this new way of thinking. Sarah wants to write a book. Joe wants to get fit. They use a framework called the 4 questions for goal setting, which is also known as the Cartesian coordinates in NLP.
These are super useful for anyone listening who feels stuck on a goal.
Let's break them down.
Okay, the first question is, what do I need to do more of? For Joe, that's walking, eating healthy foods, simple, positive actions.
Second question, what do I need to do less of? For him, it's watching TV, eating pizza.
The third is critical. What do I need to stop doing? What needs to be eliminated completely? For Joe, it's smoking. That's a non-negotiable stop.
And the fourth, which I think is often the one people miss, what do I need to begin doing? What is the brand new habit or action you need to start?
For Joe, that's joining a gym and getting an actual training plan. It's not just about stopping the bad, it's about starting the good.
It covers all the bases. But Bandler adds another crucial layer called the evidence procedure.
Yes. He asks the question, how will you know specifically when you have achieved it?
Because I want to be fit is too vague.
Way too vague. The brain can't target fit. You need specific sensory evidence. What exactly will you see in the mirror? A specific muscle definition. What will you hear people saying to you? What will you feel? The energy to run up a flight of stairs without getting winded. You have to give the brain a high-definition 4K target to aim for.
They also talk about what are called propulsion systems. This is all about motivation.
And Bandler's advice is that you need both a carrot and a stick. You need both away from and towards motivation working together.
Most people only use one.
Right. They either wait until the pain of their current situation gets so bad the stick that they are forced to move, or they have a nice dream about the future, the carrot. But there's no urgency, so they never act.
So Bandler says to use both at the same time.
Yes. He says, put a horrible, dark, miserable image of the future if you don't change right behind you. Make it big and scary. Joe imagines himself 10 years from now, overweight, sick, alone, dying of a heart attack. That image pushes him forward.
And then in front of you.
You put a massive, bright, sexy, compelling image of the future if you do change. Joe imagines himself fit, confident, happy, running on a beach. That image pulls him.
So you're getting squeezed from both ends. You're propelled. You physically have to move forward.
He creates momentum. It makes inaction more painful than action.
Before the seminar ends, Bandler does this little riff on loneliness that really hits home for Joe.
Yes, he talks about a woman named Laura who claims she's lonely. And Bandler says, you live in a city of millions of people. To be lonely, you have to work really hard at it.
That's such a reframe.
Isn't it? He says you have to actively avoid people. You have to look down at the sidewalk when you walk. You have to wear headphones. You have to sit in the corner of the cafe and stare at your phone. He lists the whole strategy.
He's reframing loneliness from a state of being that happens to you to a skill, a strategy.
You are actively doing loneliness. You are executing a series of behaviors to achieve the result of being lonely. And if you recognize it as a strategy, as a set of actions,
you can just stop doing them. You can choose a different strategy.
You can look up, you can take the headphones off, you can smile, you can say hello. It puts the responsibility and the power squarely back on the individual. It stops you from being a victim of your feelings.
So the 3-day seminar wraps up. Joe leaves. He feels great. He's full of motivation. But the real test is always the real world, isn't it?
Always.
And that brings us to our final segment. Segment 4, the aftermath.
We fast forward 3 months. This is where we see if the changes actually stuck.
And the results are pretty impressive. Peter, the athlete Joe, met at the seminar. He made the European Championships.
Sarah, the writer, found a publisher for her book.
And Joe. He lost a stone. That's 14 pounds for us. He quit smoking for good. And he's actually going to the gym and enjoying it. He feels great.
But then comes the twist, the big test.
Lisa, the ex-girlfriend, sends him a text message.
The one who left him for the burly personal trainer.
That's the one. Apparently it didn't work out. And she wants to get back together.
This is the moment of truth. The old Joe, the Joe from 3 months ago, would have jumped at this. He would have been desperate for her validation.
Oh, absolutely. He would have seen it as his only chance for happiness. He would have been driven by that away from pain of being alone.
But the new Joe doesn't panic. The book says his reaction is calm, almost neutral. He calls Alan, one of the trainers from the seminar, for advice.
And Alan reminds him of something he received at the very end of the seminar, a letter in a gold envelope. And inside that envelope is the most important question.
The question is simple, but profound. It is, what are the most important things in your life right now?
Joe sits with that. He thinks about it. And he realizes the answer isn't getting Lisa back or having a girlfriend. The answer is the people who truly support him, his sister Maria, his new friend like Sarah, and himself.
He includes himself on the list.
He realizes his own well-being, his own health, his own future. They are important.
That's a massive shift in values. He's moved from prioritizing external validation to prioritizing his own internal state.
It's huge. So we get this final scene. Joe is at his apartment. The doorbell rings. He's expecting it might be Lisa. Maybe he's going to tell her it's over for good. He opens the door, and it's not Lisa. It's Sarah.
The brown-haired woman from the seminar?
They are together. And it's a bit of a Hollywood ending, sure, but it feels earned. Joe went from being a total victim of his thoughts, someone who couldn't even say hello to a woman he found attractive, to becoming the controlling element of his own life. He designed this future.
And that's the core message of the whole book. He didn't just get lucky, he applied the tools. He systematically shrank his fears, he amplified his confidence, he changed his critical inner voice, he set a clear direction. The result followed the actions.
So let's bring us all home for everyone listening. We've covered a ton of ground here. The book really is a user manual for the brain. Let's just recap the main buttons and dials we learned how to use.
Right, let's make it a toolkit.
Visual controls. If a bad memory is hurting you, shrink it, drain the color, push it far away. If a good memory helps you, make it huge, bright, and panoramic. And for trauma, use the reverse movie technique. Run it backwards with circus music to break the narrative code.
2. Auditory controls. Change the tone of your internal dialogue. If your inner critic is being a bully, don't argue with it. Just make it sound ridiculous. Make it sound like Mickey Mouse or a clown. Strip it of its authority.
3. Kinesthetic controls. Feelings have movement. Find the spin. If fear or anxiety spins upwards, consciously spin it downwards. And use the brilliant square to physically step into a state of confidence whenever you need it.
4. Belief. They are not set in stone. They're just habits of thought. Remember that they are either useful or limiting. Discard the ones that aren't useful. And if you have to, hallucinate a more powerful experience to override a bad belief, just like Bandler did with Charlie.
And finally, 5. Goals. Stop asking, why am I stuck? And start asking, how can I move forward? Focus on towards motivation, what you want to become, not just away from what you want to escape. And use those 4 questions to map out your plan.
It really is a comprehensive toolkit for taking the driver's seat of your own bus.
It is.
Bandler ends the book with this really provocative thought that stuck with me. He says, disappointment requires adequate planning.
I love that line. It's so counterintuitive. It implies that misery is an active process. You don't just get disappointed, you have to plan for it.
You have to set specific expectations. You have to focus on what could go wrong. You have to rehearse the failure in your mind.
It's a lot of work.
It's a huge amount of work. So the challenge to the listener is, why not plan to be happy instead? It takes the same amount, if not less, mental energy to plan for success as it does to plan for misery.
Precisely. If you are going to run a movie in your head, and you are, we all are, all the time, why not run a movie where you win? Why not run a movie where you are confident and articulate and successful? Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined reality and an actual reality. Use that to your advantage.
I want to leave all of you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about the reverse movie technique for past traumas, but what if you applied that to your fears of the future?
Preemptive scrambling.
Exactly. If you have a big fear about something happening tomorrow, a presentation, a difficult conversation, a first date, what if you took that dreaded future scenario, played it out in your mind, and then ran the whole thing backwards to circus music right now? What if you scrambled the fear code before the event even happened? How would your tomorrow look different if you neutralized the fear before you even got out of bed?
That is a powerful application. You're clearing the road before you even start the engine.
Yeah. Exactly. Take the keys, drive the bus. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into how to take charge of your life. We will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye.